Hi guys, this is Banches, and welcome back to a new series that we will be doing. What we're basically going to be doing is talking about future games that are coming out in the near future. Basically, the first game that we are going to be talking about is Transport Fever 2. This game will be coming out very soon, and I feel like it's appropriate for us to discuss what is going on, what has been announced for the game, and just to get you guys kind of pumped for the release of the game. Personally, for me, I am super pumped for the release, and I know right now with us doing Transport Fever on the channel, it'd probably be good to talk a little bit more about Transport Fever 2. So, let's get into it. So, the developers at Urban Games and Good Shepherd Entertainment have been really busy working to release Transport Fever 2. The game is expected currently to release in Q4 of 2019, and it will be a major upgrade from the original Transport Fever. For all of you who know, Transport Fever is basically a railroad-focused tycoon game. It's set in Europe and America, and it basically goes through the golden ages of rail transportation all the way up to the modern era. Really cool idea. Definitely a really cool idea for a transport tycoon type of game. You also have the ability to control many different kinds of assets within the game. For example, you start off early in the game, you can control horse-drawn wagons, and as you move on, you can get into buses, trucks, trains, trams, planes, and boats. So there are many options for you guys to use. The basic point of the game is you will need to create a transport network between cities to transport goods and passengers to their destinations. Along the way, you're basically going to be growing your network and connecting everything up to more and more locations, trying to spread out your transport empire. For me, Transport Fever is one of those strategy games that I kind of just get wrapped into, and I can just play it for hours without noticing. You kind of always notice that you need to be like 5 steps ahead of yourself when you're planning how to make lines and stuff like that. If you're not thinking ahead, you could definitely find yourself in a pinch for cash and struggling to make ends meet in the game, which definitely keeps the game interesting and you always on your toes when you're playing it. When I heard Transport Fever 2 was going to be coming out in 2019, I was excited to see what they're going to be adding from the base game and how they're going to really expand it. Obviously, there's a lot of things that the community wants to see, but they can't really get everything in. So without further ado, let's get into the meat and potatoes and really discuss what's going on and what's coming out with Transport Fever 2. So the first thing that you guys are going to notice when you get into the game is the huge upgrade from the original engine used in Transport Fever. So apparently the budget that was used now to create Transport Fever 2 is 3 times the size of what the original game had, and you can really tell, basically. It really is shown in the new animations, enhanced shadows, more vibrant colors, more detailed textures, and also the introduction of animals and birds into the environment would really help bring a realistic feel to the game. They also were able to add more details to the vehicles, enhancing the cinematic feel of the game and increasing the number of different characters that you'll see within the cities. They basically added a module system that kind of randomizes each one of the characters through the different ages, so you're never really looking at the same character over and over again like you get in Transport Fever, the original one. So next, they will be adding a world editor into the game, which will allow for many new maps to be created for the community. I personally love this idea, and I think that this feature is awesome that they'll be adding this. There is no more need to just basically randomly generate maps and hope that the layout that you'll be getting works for you. Now you'll be able to actually go into it, select where your cities are going to be located, how the landscape should look, and where all the industries will be located as well. I definitely love this. I think this is going to give a great aspect and a great feel to the game overall. This will also bring a new design to the game, which will allow, basically the potential to create large sprawling cities, which Transport Fever 1 was really missing out on. Another new feature is that they will be importing height maps into the game. So you could basically take realistic terrain, place it into the game, and now create real transport networks, which is going to be a really cool feature in the game. The last feature they will be adding is the ability to change the biomes on your maps. Basically, the original Transport Fever, if you were going to play in the US map, for example, you were stuck with a desert. In now Transport Fever 2, you will have the ability to change what biomes you want. So for example, now if you're going to play in the Europe map, you could play in a desert, or you could play in a tropical environment. You're not stuck with just whatever the base game has, which is going to be a wonderful feature also. So the next thing that we are going to talk about, basically overall the developers have really upgraded the design and the features found in many of now the stations and cities. So first they went ahead and now added some modular stations into the game, which basically will allow players to create their stations however they please. If they want, they could have six passenger stations and 2 freight lines to basically attached all into one station, which is kind of a cool feature. There's no more separate stations. You can combine everything kind of together, make super long stations if you want, or super short stations. They also added a new traffic management system into the game. Sadly, this system is not as detailed as say City Skylines Traffic Manager, which you guys know I play City Skylines 2. I love that traffic managing system. But this is also still a huge upgrade from what Transport Fever 1 had. First, what they did was they added now traffic lights into intersections, and they also gave now priorities to certain vehicles in say high traffic areas of town, so your vehicles can actually move through these areas more efficiently. Lastly, the traffic AI is also now more intelligent than what it was in Transport Fever 1. For example, vehicles will now actually use their proper lanes to switch in intersections, and that will basically cut down on a lot of the traffic that we've been seeing in Transport Fever 1 that gets built up. The cool part about now having also this traffic management system in the game, I believe that this will give a huge potential for the modding community to come in and really make a bunch of different options, maybe expand this out to kind of be more like City Skylines, and give the community and the players a lot more options with organizing and designing traffic flow. So, be cool to see. We'll see how this ends up working out. Okay guys, so the biggest change in Transport Fever 2 from Transport Fever 1 will be the new freight system that they have added. So now facilities will produce and be locked at 200 capacity, compared to Transport Fever 1, which the production was based on demand generated from the freight lines, and goods could range from 100 to 1800 of production capacity. The higher the demand, the more goods that would be produced. This led to freight being an unreliable source of income, since production would fluctuate a lot and it would leave facilities with no goods to ship, decreasing profits on the freight lines. In Transport Fever 2, we will now have to more worry about adding more raw resource facilities onto our lines, directing them into one large processing plant to make sure that we basically produce enough goods to keep up with the demand. So they kind of switched it around a little bit. Instead of now just kind of centralizing all production in one area, we're going to be having a bunch of raw resources coming from many areas now. It's a pretty interesting change, but we will see how it ends up working out. The second biggest change in the freight system is that not every city now will accept every kind of freight. Each city will basically be allowed to accept 2 different freights. One will be a commercial good, for example, food, while another would be an industrial good, such as construction materials or something like that. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of this idea, since one of my favorite things to do in starting out in Transport Fever 1 was to build a food network and try to expand that network to as many cities as possible. This really helped large revenue in the early game and helped expand networks outwards. This also means that large freight trains and loop tracks used in Transport Fever 1 will be probably obsolete as a strategy going forward. I'm sure that someone in the modding community will come up with a way to fix this, but for now we're gonna have to play with this new system and see how it works. Let's just hope that it works out well. Let me know what you guys think of this new idea of a freight network, limiting only goods to 2 goods per city. Just put a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. Another big thing that they've added is pollution. So this feature will basically impact how your city will grow and how people react to your network. The biggest feature most likely that they will add is noise and smoke pollution. I personally would like to see how this will affect creating large city cores with train stations, since it may reduce the amount of people that will want to live that close to your transport lines. Once again, we're gonna have to see how this works out. This is a new idea. I do think personally this is a cool idea. It definitely brings a whole nother strategy to your game, and I think it will also help out later on in the late stages of the game too. Just bring an extra little bit of strategy into the game. So the next thing we are going to talk about, guys, is the new campaign. Yes, of course, they are bringing back a new campaign for Transport Fever 2. The campaign is a little more structured than Transport Fever 1, but it should help newcomers to the game understand how the basics work and how everything really will operate. I played the campaign for both the American and European theaters in Transport Fever 1, and it was a great help to understand the basics of the game. Hopefully this will be the same as first one, and I also hope they just make it a little bit longer than the first one. It was a super quick campaign, and I wanted a little bit more than what the first one gave us. And also you spent your time just doing free play, which is great. That's a great part of the game, but it would just been nice to get a little bit more story out of the game. So, of course, guys, with the new game, there's some awesome features that they've added, but for me personally, I do have some letdowns with this new game coming out. So for me, the biggest letdown for the next edition of the Transport Fever series is that they will not be including AI components or multiplayer as a feature. For me personally, I really was hoping that they would bring at least one of these 2 features into the game, but instead the developers will be focusing more on improving the imperfections of the first game and trying to get the basics of the game all figured out for future series. According to Kernel Failure, the developers at Urban Gaming have planned for many series to come and will eventually be adding their desirable features into the game. So they do plan on also releasing DLCs for Transport Fever 2, but there are no current future details about what they will be releasing for the DLCs. Urban Games said that the main reason why they started the company was to bring back the Transport Tycoon games from the late 90s and early 2000 era. They plan on improving each rendition of Transport Fever they release and create the perfect transport game. They have no plans on creating any RPG or first-person shooter games, which I personally really like. You know that they are kind of set in their ways. They're kind of out there just to create the best Transport Tycoon game possible. For me personally, I am really excited to see the release of Transport Fever 2. I think that this game has made some great strides forward, improving the engine and fixing some of the issues with the freight found in Transport Fever 1. As mentioned earlier, Transport Fever 2 will be coming out in Q4 of 2019, so keep an eye out for the official release date. As always, guys, my name is Vanches. I hope you guys enjoyed this look into Transport Fever 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, go down below, smash that like button, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And I will see you guys in the next video. See you guys later.